He's back. Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going over there?
It's going okay. Did I disappear or something?
Yeah, you froze and then your camera reloaded and now you're back.
Oh, terrific. I
Yeah.
love it. I love
it. Awesome.
Mike Seibert Radio. We're about to start the show. We talk about stuff and things. Lots of guests, in-depth interviewing. Mike Seibert Radio. It's nobody's favorite show. Movies, comics, video games, and TV. And we also can guarantee that it's not gonna be that funny. But that's okay because the show is free. So crank the volume in your headphones. The podcast at last is starting. It's time for Mike Seibert Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host. I hope you are having a happy and healthy holiday season. On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to share excerpts of my appearance on Whirl's fundraiser live stream for Extra Life. So going back in time a bit, back on November 4th, and I guess actually into November 5th as well, and with the time change as well. But anyway, a friend of the show, Whirl, once and future guest, who I'm part of the organization team for Cyberfest Northwest with. Anyway, they hosted a charity fundraising live stream for Extra Life. If you don't know what Extra Life is, it's a fundraising program of Children's Miracle Network hospitals. The Extra Life community fundraises year-round to change kids' health to change the future. Donations go to local member hospitals to fund critical life-saving treatments and healthcare services, along with innovative research, vital pediatric medical equipment, and child life services. Since its inception in 2008, Extra Life has raised over $110 million to change kids' health to change the future. So basically what it is folks play video games and chat to raise money for Children's Hospital. It's very, very cool, and it's something that I was glad to support my friends doing. Whirl obviously has been on the podcast a few times and had mentioned they were doing Extra Life anytime they were on, and I thought it would be fun to do a follow-up here since some of that conversation kind of came from right here in Mike Seibert Radio. So basically what I did was I jumped on the live stream in the middle of the night. I think I logged on at like 10 or 11. Basically, my thinking is when folks are in the middle of a 25-hour marathon live stream, you start to fade, you start to get dippy, you start to get a little rummy. So I thought it would be fun to try to keep Whirl company and awake so that they could kind of get a second wind as they, kind of push into the next phase of the Extra Life live stream. But what I did not know was how much fun we were going to have just hanging out, especially when other members of Whirl's Team Palians squad joined the chat as well. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The other members of the team will come into play later. But I want to let you know right here before I start playing clips, I want to let you know that even though that live stream is long since over, I mean, again, this was back on November 4th, November 5th, but even so, you can still donate to Extra Life through the end of this year. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to the Whirl eBird page where you can watch the entire 24-hour live stream video. I think it's broken into 4, maybe 5 different videos. And basically that way you can kind of experience it as it originally streamed live while they're playing the game Palia, and responding to chats and collecting donations. And then, kind of like in the overnight section of it is when I decide to show up and hang out. But more importantly than that, that is the hub where you can donate to Team Palians directly through Extra Life. And again, I will have that link in the show notes. for you to click through. So let's get into it then. In this first set of clips, I've kind of done some editing and tightening, but I start off my appearance in classic Mike Seibert fashion, with my internet not working so well. I think what ended up happening is I was having bandwidth problems in the middle of the night. Plus, my laptop was doing too many things. I think I had too many tabs open. So there is some stuff in the audio that you'll hear where we kind of refer to my bandwidth and things kind of dipping a little bit. So I kind of snipped some of that legislation. But shortly after that, once I figure out how to operate my web camera and whatnot, I kind of get my footing underneath me, and then we talk about the 400th episode of Mike Seibert Radio. So we do make a few references to that. So if you've not listened to MSRP 400, you might want to check that out before getting into that, because we do make some references to that episode, which is actually where the idea for me to join the live stream for Extra Life came in to begin with, because basically we were talking about it. And I think like a light bulb went off on my head. I was like, wait a second. Well, yeah, I could just join on and hang out. And that's actually what we did. But after that section, we got some really cool questions from folks just hanging out in the chat, the text chat. And I thought some of my responses were apparently insightful enough to be included here. And we round out the conversation with a lot of Transformers fandom conversations. And, you know, we trade some war stories from TFCons in the past. And like I said, this was a conversation that we had back in November. So it is a little time capsule-y, kind of a little bit of a time capsule, especially when we're referring to TFCon LA. But you can listen to all of that for yourself coming up right now on Mike Seibert Radio.
All right. I can be Mike again if I need to. Joe says we love Mike. Thank you. I also love you. I love you too, Joe. This is hilarious and tragic. It's okay. Oh, Mike. So now you know how I felt during your 400th anniversary stream.
Yes.
Do you want to turn your webcam off? That might make it a little bit.
Yeah, let me try that. Oh yeah, because I'm not actually using the webcam for anything. So yeah, let me just turn off the camera.
400. Yes, Mike is 400 years old. No. So Mike has I'm going to move my camera over here. There we go.
Yeah, why don't we just do that? I'll just be the ghost of the iconic moment over here. Woo!
There you
something.
go. But yeah, do you want to answer that question about your 400th anniversary?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I've been doing podcasting for about 8 years now, and not too long ago I celebrated 400 episodes, and one of my favorite things to do is live streams, which is part of the reason why I was excited for the opportunity to jump on here. But no, I like doing live stream late night chats. And for my 400th episode, it was a right banger. We had a half dozen of our friends together, and it got real buck wild at times. It was a ton of fun.
I did. That's been some of my listening during the longer drives. I've been working my way through that episode.
Nice.
The Ghost of the Iconic Moments appearance was even funnier the second time around.
It really was.
I was wheezing as much as I thought I was during that. 'Cause I did have to mute my mic because of the noises I was making during that the song. That was very good.
Did I ever post the lyrics to that? Because the ghost actually sent me the actual lyrics of the Mike Seibert Radio song, and I don't know if I've actually posted and shared those. If I haven't, I probably should.
If you did, I've missed them, but I've not seen them yet.
Well,
Joe,
that's a good reminder. I should do that again.
so Joe actually has a question for you. What does
Oh,
Mike
sure.
think about the introduction of G.I. Joe into the new movies?
I think it's fine. I've been a supporter of Transformers and G.I. Joe being kind of, if not sibling brands, at least cousin brands. I'm cool with G.I. Joe and Transformers being in the same universe together. I don't think that they need to be in a state of constant crossover. I don't think they necessarily need each other to survive, but I think the universe can be large enough to where, like, for example, let me give you an example. Like anytime the military shows up in Transformers, my brain automatically goes to, well, this should just be G.I. Joe. Like in the live action movies, like why isn't Annie Lennox and Tyrese and all those other knuckleheads? Why aren't they just G.I. Joe? You know, why isn't John Cena part of G.I. Joe? You know that kind of thing. So it's like it's always kind of made sense for me. So I guess with the massive spoilers for a movie that came out earlier this year that I don't think enough people saw. I think with that particular introduction of G.I. Joe into the Transformers universe, I think this particular iteration, it's a long time coming. Like G.I. Joe in live action, they can't do nothing right. They can't seem to get anything going on that side. And I remember I was at a TFCon one time, and I think Rick Alvarez was talking about that G.I. Joe had the G.I. Joe brand team for Hasbro had wanted to be a part of Transformers for a while, and the Transformers team was kind of resistant to it because they felt that they quote unquote didn't need them. And I think that's kind of true. I think that Transformers is the stronger brand and the stronger IP, and certainly has more universal appeal, because at the end of the day, G.I. Joe is kind of like a baby war brand. At a time when war isn't necessarily always fashionable or timely or maybe even appropriate. But for me, G.I. Joe has always kind of felt like a step to the side of Marvel superheroes. You know, it's like, you know, what we know mostly of the tropes of G.I. Joe, you know, like Cobra and Snake Eyes and all the ninjas and all that stuff. That all comes from Larry Hama, and Larry Hama was a Marvel Comics guy. So the original pitch for G.I. Joe was meant to be like a Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type of thing. And so it's always kind of had a root in comic book sensibility. And if you look at the cast of G.I. Joe, they're just as colorful as the cast of Transformers. And, you know, with, you know, wacky personalities. And so rather than looking at it as more hardcore military, I always look at it as just kind of like superhero hijinks. You know, look at the Sunbow cartoon from the 80s, you know, that ran in parallel with Transformers. You know, everybody's shooting red and blue lasers at each other. Nobody actually gets hurt. And those, a lot of those episodes are actually really quite silly. So I think for me, kind of my favorite iterations of G.I. Joe is where it leans more into the silly and less into the gritty. But I think there is some connective tissue that I think can kind of link G.I. Joe and Transformers together in a way that kind of makes sense in a live action movie. You know, a Transformers live action franchise cannot function without human characters. That's one of my weirdest Transformers hot takes is I like humans. And I think having humans in a Transformers storyline is essential, especially in live action, because it conveys the sense of scale. I know there's a large vocal sect of the fandom, a lot of folks who look like me, that say like, well, they want the prologue of the Bumblebee movie as a 2.5 hour movie, which for me sounds exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. I don't even know if I want that. I don't know if I would have patience for it. But the thing that once you spend time in space with just the Transformers, you lose the sense of scale. You lose perspective that these are giant robots that are in disguise as everyday vehicles and objects and things like that. I've said this in many of my own podcasts, but like, while I'm not the biggest fan of the Michael Bay live action movies, it does, I feel, capture the sense of scale and awe that you're supposed to feel when you're around the Transformers. Like, there's a reason why one of the most iconic moments is when Optimus Prime pulls up in front of Sam and Michaela and transforms and reveals himself, and says, "My name is Optimus Prime," and you feel that sense of scope and scale because this is a full-size truck that is now unfolded into a humongous robot. And I feel like if it's just humongous robots around other humongous robots, you lose that sense of awe. And I think again, I'm veering way beyond the scope of the question, but I think that's one of the things that was kind of missing from Rise of the Beasts a little bit. It's like, Noah, because of kind of how his character is, he's kind of a cool cat and really kind of nonplussed when, Mirage reveals himself. It's kind of not a big deal. And even when Optimus Prime comes trumping and stumping into this warehouse saying, "You brought one of these dirty humans in here, ew, gross," it still doesn't have that awe that I think human characters are supposed to have with regards to interacting with Transformers. Say what you will about the acting of those military guys in those first couple movies, but like, you get the feeling from Josh Duhamel as my favorite military guy, Annie Lennox, not his real name, but go listen to More Than Meets the Pod for that. But anyway, there's that sense of scale, and I like the idea if you make the human military people characters that you actually care about as they're interacting with the Autobots and the Decepticons. I think that's a really good way to go. And if you incorporate G.I. Joe in there, well, they're already established characters, so you don't have to create new characters whole cloth. So a very, 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 very long way of saying I am in support of G.I. Joe joining the Hasbro Cinematic Universe and joining the world of the live-action Transformers.
Fantastic.
I'll leave it there for now.
Joe said, "Great answer. Appreciate the nuance." He also says, "G.I. Joe was my nickname in high school."
Oh, nice.
Which is a frequent joke that he makes of X was my nickname in high school, but this one I will take. I imagine that you've probably gotten G.I. Joe a handful of times, Joe. Apollo in chat says, "What do you think of issue 1 of the new Transformers comic and the whole idea of the Energon Universe?" I did not tell them to ask you questions. It just happens naturally around you.
I love it. This is what we're here for. There's a reason why I've been like, spamming my socials with like, "Hey man, I'm going to jump on with Whirl to kind of, cure the late
he died again.
Night dip and let folks have a nap and stuff like that." So yeah, oh no. Have I left
here.
again?
You're here.
Have I returned? Oh, good. Oh, thank the maker. Maybe I should work on brevity then, just in case my internet decides to crap out.
I would never ask that of you.
Let's see. Okay, so Transformers #1. I have not read it. I have not had the opportunity to check it out yet. And I would imagine that my thoughts on the Energon universe are very similar to that whole screed that I just talked about with regards to G.I. Joe. Now, I do think that I'm a little puzzled by the move of between Skybound Image Comics and Hasbro to kind of Trojan horse Transformers in this new series called Void Rivals. Basically, like it was billed as a exciting new comic series from writer Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible and a bunch of other cool stuff. And with the wink and the nod to retailers, like, I can't tell you what's going to happen in this issue, but if you or anybody you know is fans of Transformers, you might want to order heavy on this issue. Trust me on this. I can't tell you, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be Transformers in this comic, so you might want to order some extras. And sure enough, spoiler alert for the end of Void Rivals #1, which predates Transformers #1, Skyfire shows up as basically like a post-credit thing, and basically it's these two people that are stuck on this moon together, and they're beating up on each other, having the titular Void rival, and then Skyfire just emerges and say, like, I'm leaving now, and then he leaves. End of issue. And it's like, and it with a big title page that says, Energon Universe. And it's like, well, I mean, if that's the way to reintroduce Transformers, that's fine. Shrug, I guess.
They're just in the background of other people's fights, I think is what needs to be.
Exactly. So I haven't picked up the first issue yet. I'm sure I will at some point, but I've been having trouble articulating why I'm not super interested. I think some of it has to do with it being a little too soon since the end of the IDW era. Like, as weird as it sounds, I think there still needs to be a little more space before something can quote unquote return. Like when the Transformers Dreamwave comics picked up, it had been years since we had Transformers comics. And granted, there wasn't that much of a gap between the implosion of Dreamwave and IDW getting the license, but still, there was a little bit of time to where it's like, hey, Transformers are back. Now with the Skybound stuff, it's like, yay, Transformers are back. And I feel like the marketing is pushing it like, well, hey man, you haven't been reading Transformers comics since 1990. Transformers are back. And it's like, yeah, dude, I just had Transformers last year. It's like it doesn't, I don't necessarily have that depth of thirst that needs to be quenched. And from what I understand, the first issue is fine and good. A lot of people are really digging on the dynamic action that writer Daniel Warren Johnson. I keep wanting to call this guy Derek J. Wyatt, but that is that's what happens when you have three names, I guess. But because I've made that mistake twice on Two Mikes Too Furious. But anyway, like his pedigree is drawing action-packed like wrestling comics and like big bold fight scenes. So like when Optimus does like this suplex move on Starscream, it's like I know a lot of people kind of went nuts for that panel, but I'm just like, yeah, that's what this guy does, and I think it's rad. I think it is a cool new take. I don't know what I'm looking for in a Transformers comic anymore, because it kind of feels direction from some of the more cerebral, intellectual stuff that we had gotten from the latter days of IDW1 and to a little bit of an extent IDW2. I think my issues with IDW2 is that it just had too damn much plot and had so much going on it never really got anywhere. Whereas I think the action-packed pace of this is more just like, you know what, let's go. We're just going to have a small cast of robots fighting each other and it with an emphasis on dynamic action more so than character development, which is cool for folks that like that. I'm hoping that more stuff comes down the pike that might be a little more of interest to me. To loop it back around to the question Joe asked earlier about G.I. Joe, I will be very interested to see what the G.I. Joe series are, because the two parallel series that are launching in the Energon universe are a Duke solo series, who's basically kind of like the first sergeant, leader, commander. He's the Optimus Prime of G.I. Joe, for lack of a better word. So he has his own solo series, and then you have Cobra Commander, the leader of the bad guys, who will also have his own solo series, but there isn't a mainline G.I. Joe comic that takes place in the Energon universe, which I think is an odd choice to start. Something about the Cobra Commander series, though, that kind of has my interest, and this is obviously relevant to my recent watching of Transformers Animated. I think basically they're grafting the Isaac Sumdac origin story onto Cobra Commander, because basically from what I've seen from the plot synopsis is Cobra Commander reverse engineers Transformers technology to build Cobra, which I'm just like, wait a dang minute. I don't know how I'm going to feel if we get a couple issues into this and we reveal that, like, because like Megatron isn't a thing in the new Transformers series yet. He hasn't shown up, and there's this whole mystery, where's Megatron, to the point where like Starscream has like a fit about it, and it's like, don't even say that name. He gets real Ben Affleck about it. He's like, Megatron, why would you say that name? Martha. He gets real Martha about it. But anyway, I'm just going to throw up in my lunch if you see in this Cobra Commander series that he's got Megatron's head in a lab somewhere. Because it's a cool trope, but they kind of did that already. And to incorporate a stolen plot point from a cartoon to use that as the origin for Cobra sounds real stupid. But that's just me. So again, very, very long answer, but no, I have not read Transformers #1. I like the idea of an Energon universe. Another side tangent to that. Speaking of G.I. Joe, in the G.I. Joe Classified series of action figures, the equivalent of Marvel Legends or Star Wars Black Series, or there's 6-inch scale figures. There's one character in particular that is he's like Mole Rat or something like that, but he's a dude in a hazmat suit. He's a bad guy. He's a Cobra dude. I think he's just like a regular trooper dude, but he has a zombie head that is infected with dark energon. And it actually says that like in his bio. It's like, oh man, this dude found some dark energon. Now he's all messed up. So I find that interesting that they're invoking something in the toys to connect those two brands together in a way that there is no crossover between Transformers Generations in the toy line and G.I. Joe Classified series. They're not even the same scale. They can't exist together. So it's wild to me that you're seeing some of those tiny hints like Dark Energon being a thing that's in G.I. Joe. I don't know if that's a thread that they're going to pick up moving forward. And I would also, while I have the talking stick here and I still have the floor before my internet poops out again, I have a bit of a rant about the state of Hasbro related fiction that I don't think I've talked about in other places yet. There is part of me, because I grew up in the 80s, I'm a G1 from day one, and part of my upbringing with these brands is to have media specifically to sell toys. And whether we like it or not, that crass consumerism is kind of intrinsically tied to these brands. And the thing that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way over the last several years about the fiction is that it's drifted further away from selling toys. Like, I could, I was a huge fan of the More Than Meets the Eye comics and then later Lost Light. I can't buy a goddamn one of those toys. Even at the time when the comics were being published. Like, none of the character models matched the product that was on the shelf. And I found that to be incredibly irritating. And I understand that the production schedule for toys and comic books and other media like, cartoons or movies or whatever is, differently. But it seemed like they managed to figure that stuff out in 1986. Because all I know is that in August of 1986, when that movie came out, and not all of, but when a fair amount of the 1984 characters got wiped out, you could not go to the store and buy them. They were discontinued. You could, however, buy the brand new 1986 characters. You could buy Cup and Hot Rod and Ultra Magnus and Galvatron and Cyclonus and Scourge and all those other folks. And so somewhere along the way, they figured that out to make that stuff line up. And it felt to me that even like the early Marvel comics kind of had that. Like, there was a tie-in with the media and with the toys. And there was a part of me that was hoping that with the relaunch of both G.I. Joe and Transformers through Skybound, that it might get back to something like that. Maybe not as much with Transformers, but let's talk about Transformers for a sec, because the cast in that Skybound series is basically the 1984 guys. It's Time and Ratchet and Cliffjumper, and now you got RC also. I mean, so she's an 86 character, but and Wheeljack and Soundwave and Starscream, and it's even I'm sick of 1984. It's like it's funny that people think that like G1 ended after the movie or something. But like, let's get into like the weirdos from like the late 80s or something like that. Or let's, get into the Japanese characters, the European characters, or, there's so many characters that aren't the 1984 cast. But you can't go to the store and buy figures of those characters in that iteration because they're very G1 1984 character models. And to put out media that isn't tied in with the toy line is kind of weird. What's even more puzzling and frustrating to me is, like I mentioned, the G.I. Joe Classified series line of figures. This thing has been massively successful for Hasbro. Like there's times that there's not enough product to go around. Then it shows up at Ross later, but that'll be a different topic for a different time if we get to that. But like, Classified series sells like hotcakes, and there is no media to support it. There's no cartoon, there's no movie, there's no comics, and yet Classified series is now one of Hasbro's most successful brands. And it's just it's puzzling to me. I don't entirely understand the strategy. And again, I know these things take a couple years to kind of develop and get into the pipeline, but I don't know. I guess the 80s kid in me misses when the media and the toys were more linked together as opposed to being completely separate things.
Okay. So real quick, I will interject just to say that we have passed the 11-hour mark, which means we've got a little bit under 14 hours to go. Joe, about 5 minutes ago, said this guy's great, so knowledgeable. He wants to know if you're familiar with Bionicles. I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever heard you talk about Bionicles. So, but
yeah, I'm not a huge Lego guy, and Bionicle is a generational blind spot for me. I'm a little too old for it. Like it just I mean I have friends that are younger that are like super into it, and I'm in a Discord for Autopod Decepticast, another awesome Transformers podcast, and half of those folks are bonkers for Bionicle and are really trying to do the hard sell on the deep lore and say, well, hey man, Transformers fans, there's a lot in Bionicle fandom that folks would like, and I just haven't messed with it. So I hear good things. And I know that the folks that like it quite a lot, but there just hasn't really been an entry point or an on-ramp for me to be like, I'm going to go check this out. But so, yeah, unfortunately, no.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I was like smack in the middle, I think. I had some Bionicles growing up, but I didn't know much about the world around it. What I was saying when I was just blabbering to myself was the universe which has the most depth between Transformers and Bionicles. I have seen some overlap between Transformers and Bionicles fans, mostly from people about my age, it seems. But Bionicles, and I don't know much about how their universe works. Transformers has a bunch of different universes, and does this cool thing that all franchises should do, and that it just reboots every few years. And I was saying, I think just everyone should do that. I think Star Wars should do that. I think MCU should do that. I think MCU should have just ended in Infinity War. Because now, and Transformers does still have people, digging their feet in and saying, we need X and X from 30 years ago. But we have much less than we would have if we had been dedicating ourselves to one singular universe for the past 30 years. But I think restarting the franchise every few years means that we have multiple universes and they all have their own different amounts of depth. So I don't know what Bionicles is doing. I don't know what's going on over there. I hope they're having fun.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish them all the best. And it's interesting, and we've talked about this a lot on the shows we've done together, Whirl, in that, I think Transformers fans, I think the only group of fandom that is more conditioned for reboots and new cycles than Transformers fans are Power Rangers, because it's literally like a new cycle like every year. And I think every legacy franchise needs a little bit of that. Right. And I think it's a great idea, and it allows fans to have specific favorites. like, I recently returned from TFCon in Orlando, and one of the most adorable as I picked up was a sticker set from a fan artist named Plushy, and they did a sticker page of Soundwave. And again, Soundwave is my favorite Transformers character, but there are a dozen different iterations of the same character on there. They even found a way to incorporate that dumb satellite version from the live action movies that nobody likes. But I told them at the convention, I was like, well, he's a Soundwave, so he gets in. So it's okay to have. And I feel like our friends in Star Wars fandom are kind of missing out on that. And I think our friends in MCU fandom are kind of missing out on that. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have, like, well, I don't know, a few different iterations of Wolverine, or, or whoever, pick whatever legacy character, because I'm glad also that Hugh Jackman is coming back for Deadpool 3. It's going to be fine because, the bromance is real. That's fine. I'll allow it. But I think specifically with the MCU, they told such a complete story with such a definitive ending. It's just been nothing but diminishing returns ever since. And I think it just need to rest. Just let it rest. Much like Tony, just let him rest.
Right.
But anyway, I just think I think reboots and new cycles for fandom is very, very good.
Yeah. Joe asked, what part of Transformers lore just gets you geeked? And I've been thinking about this for a couple minutes, so I'm going to jump in and answer before I forget it all immediately.
Please, absolutely, because once I start going, it'll be like, oh, it's my turn now. What was I gonna say? Hey, the floor is yours.
All right. So my answer on this, I think, is going to be the different ways that the biological robot, I guess, is portrayed. I really like robots in media. I like all the different, interpretations of sentient robots and, futuristic robots and all these different ways robots are portrayed in media. From anything from Metropolis to Transformers. But the, I guess the biology side of things like optics instead of eyes, things like sparks in Transformers, I think are super cool. And just the different ways that this, culture forms from these robots that are also, more or less biological sentient beings. And the different ways that impacts the story and comes into play. And a lot of the times in Transformers, it is specifically so that they can do more violence than they could if it was humans. Because you see robots, getting their spines ripped out and just torn in half and things like that, and you can do that with a person on a movie and not have an R rating, But all the different ways that robots are portrayed as these, living, not necessarily breathing beings. And I think that's neat. Belle just redeemed the points thing for me to put on cat ears, so I'll go do that while Mike does a thing. Mike, what good.
What I love
part
it.
of Transformers lore gets you geeked, Mike?
Well, I had a different interpretation of the question, though. I like where you're going, and I also will echo that and say that I really enjoy the way that Transformers are shown to be living life forms. They aren't just machines. I mean, yes, they are robots, but they're, they can think and feel, and there is a certain level of biological nature to them. Just ask your favorite fan artists about all that same searches you've read. But no, it does underscore, though, one of my problems that I do have with the depiction of violence, though, specifically in the live action movies. I've said this in a couple other spots, but it's like yes, they're robots, but they're either people or they aren't. and you can't necessarily depict people getting their spines ripped out. So that's just a dumb hang up on my side. But so my interpretation of like what part of Transformers lore gets you geeked, folks that might be meeting me for the first time here on the Whirly Bird Extra Life live stream. I kind of like the Transformers the movie from 1986. That is my not only is it my favorite piece of Transformers media, but it is my favorite movie. And it's interesting to me because I went through a large period of time before I interacted with the larger Transformers fandom. And I spent a lot of years thinking I was the only person who liked that movie. And that is a true ass story. And then I connect with Transformers fandom and start connecting with fans that are not just my age and of similar backgrounds and experiences, but folks that are older than me, but more importantly, folks that are younger than me that have just as much affection for that movie that I have. And quite frankly, that weirded me out at first. I was like, wait a sec, this was my thing. I thought I was the only weirdo on this planet who actually liked that movie. And I remember one of my buddies said like, yeah, everybody does. You're not special. I'm like, oh no, I'm not special.
That's my thing.
Exactly. And really, I had crafted a bit of my early Twitter identity around that. Like, I messed around with like, movie podcast Twitter and film Twitter and stuff like that. It's like, whenever Orson Welles' birthday would come up, it would say like, what's your favorite Orson Welles role? And I'd be like the Transformers, the movie, that kind of thing. And that was at a time where I was not necessarily participating in the larger Transformers fandom as we kind of know it today. But yeah, that was kind of my thing. So not necessarily in the spirit of the question, what part of Transformers lore gets you geeked, but that is certainly a bit that is a large part of the Transformers lore that certainly gets me geeked. Like, that movie is 37 years old and I have, oh gosh, almost a dozen different copies of it on a variety of different media. I have at least 3 different VHS tapes, just as many DVDs. I got a Blu-ray, I got a 4K. I don't have it on Betamax or Laserdisc. So if anybody has extinct media and knows of a hookup, I don't know if our buddy Ryan King even has it on Betamax. I'd have to ask him.
He'd be the guy.
Would be the guy. He would be the guy. I think he does have it on Laserdisc, but I don't know if he has it on Beta. I'll have to ask him the next time. I have a Ryan King story, by the way. That I'll tell you.
For people who are not local Seattle area Transformers collectors, which is of
which none of these people are,
right? Which is all things considered, a fairly niche group. Ryan King is a local guy who collects, Transformers like the rest of us, but he also collects kind of the weirder branded, licensed kind of things. So he's this guy that has all these, and it's gonna sound geeky. He has these super cool like old like party napkins and like sleeping bags and like tents and things that were all Transformers branded. But he's also got things like movie scripts and what was he had those big books that weren't the movie scripts. What did he have at Seibert that you'd made? Storyboards, yes, yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, he's got tons of storyboards.
But dude could open a museum of like cool Transformers history stuff. So things like, I want to buy the Transformers the movie on Laserdisc. You'd be like, Ryan King, do you have that? And he'd be like, yes, and it's not for sale. So
Exactly.
At the Transformers convention that Mike and I both are in the organization team for, he ran a panel in 2022 I think it was called Transformers Oddities is what it was called. And it was just all these weird Transformers things that he owned, and it was all super cool. I'm gonna do a tangent real quick, and then Mike can do also a tangent.
Terrific! I love all this.
Scoot over here and grab this. One of my favorite Transformers things that I own is very, very goofy. Let's see if I can find it here. Is this it? Yes. Okay. I have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, The Invisibility Factor by Joseph Sherman. You must help the Autobots stop the Decepticons from destroying the world. It is a choose-your-own-adventure book. I don't know how old it is. It's from 1986. Okay. So it's a choose-your-own-adventure book.
It's from 86, yeah.
It's got this kid's name in it. It's been scribbled through. I have another one somewhere as well. But these books are hilarious. If you choose wrong, they have the most like horrific graphic endings of like your favorite Transformers getting brutally murdered. And so these are probably the oldest things in my collection, but they are also the funniest. And one day I will do a Seibfest panel where we do a group read through and decision making on a few of these books because they are hilarious. And I think I got these.
Oh my gosh!
I think I got these from Monica a while back, but they're super fun. So, all right, I don't know what we were talking about, but it's Mike's turn.
I think we're still talking about Ryan King. I said I had a Ryan King story.
Yes.
So as we've already well established, we've set the scene that our mutual friend Ryan King is part of the Pacific Northwest Seattle area Transformers fan group. He frequently tables at Seibfest Northwest. I went to TFCon in Orlando. And it's funny because because Ryan and I live very close together, we very often end up on the same flight. And it's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were going. That kind of thing, as if, communication is not older men's first best strength. So it'd be like, hey, maybe just like drop somebody a line. Didn't really think about it. But anyway, so he goes to TFCon to table, to sell stuff. A lot of the same stuff that he sells at Seibfest.
I think I saw the Facebook post you're about the
Yeah. So what I'm going to try to do, if I can, I'm going to risk losing some of my bandwidth so I could do a visual daily double of some of the things that I bought from Ryan. Am I coming through on camera okay?
Yeah, let me move my camera because I scooted mine over. All right, there we go.
Yeah, because we didn't think I was going to be able to make it. But first, so since we're doing a little bit of show and tell, since you had already mentioned it, Whirl, I have to show off the napkins,
yes.
the party napkins. This is like maybe my third pack of party napkins that Ryan has given me. I don't know how many of these he has, but every time I see him, he just tosses me a pack. Here you go, and I'm like, thanks, buddy. But speaking of extinct media, I picked up on VHS cassette.
Poor Mike's bandwidth. But he's got the Return of Optimus Prime on VHS, and that's what matters, right? Oh. Something's happening. Okay,
so I turned the camera off, and now I'm going to try to turn it back on so I can very quickly show the main thing I got, and we'll see if that works. Can you see me?
Yes. Hello.
Very good. I got myself a Lady Bird Books, the Transformers.
You got the Lady Bird's books.
The movie storybook with the audio cassette to go. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Now I'm going to turn my camera off before any more of my bandwidth.
We'll shuffle over here again. We'll do a little dance. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the napkins you get every time. Because watching everyone at TFCon Orlando has given me the itch again to go to a TFCon. But
Oh my God, yeah.
Mike, a Facebook post came across my feed, as several were that weekend from TFCon Orlando, and one of them was Mike posting a picture of these things he had just gotten with the caption, "I flew all the way to Orlando to buy things from Ryan King." And I greatly enjoyed that, because we do, it's a small world. We all run in the same circles for the most part. But, you see the same people in the same places because we all go and we do these things. Or, well, not all, we don't all go because I don't go. But people who have the money at the time will go and do these things. So you do see
Exactly.
people that you recognize from your circle and the bigger circle, which is before Mike was on the Seibfest organization team. I was at a Seibfest and we ran into each other, and Mike was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "Hey, I'm good." And then I left and I didn't see Mike for the rest of the weekend because we were both in a huge hurry. And
Yep.
I think we talked about it. I don't remember which podcast we were talking on, but it was one of yours. I think it was probably your 400th anniversary one, where we said that
Probably.
we were both at Emerald City on Friday, and then we both flew to TFCon overnight, and we're both like going through it. Having a little bit of a strained weekend with 80 billion things to do, but it was a very good weekend.
Yep.
I know, I know because I had a story saved up for that, and I didn't get to. You were talking about the various amounts of drinking you were doing and how you were coping with the stress of that weekend, and it had reminded me that we had packed several people in a hotel room, and it was myself, my friends Syke and Chanel, Monica and Joelle, and then I think a couple of Monica's friends that she had brought along as well. And we weren't all staying in that hotel room, but we all ended up in that hotel room that night because we decided to do a Transformers Prime drinking game, which was very fun, but it did not last very long, solely because we all got very goofy very quickly and stopped watching Transformers to just like mess around. But it was all things like Ratchet says I needed that, you take a shot. Just various fun little things like that. It was like Starscream mentions killing Cliffjumper, take a shot. But we had a lot of fun. It was very enjoyable. But I don't know how much, like, how drunk we actually got, because I think we all just got like buzzed and stupid and stopped watching Transformers and drinking and just like chatting. I remember I had brought my laptop and I opened up a Minecraft LAN world for the hotel Wi-Fi and like just posted about it on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, if you're at TFCon, join my Minecraft server." It was all just things like that. It was a very fun, goofy weekend. I did not get a lot of sleep that weekend because we went and did some touristy stuff too. Actually, no, that might be. No, that was the same weekend. We went down to like a shopping strip in. I don't remember where. But there was a shopping strip, and I decided I was going to do a Ravage cosplay. And so I had these ears, and I had like a black crop top and like black short skirt and like fishnets and like a giant Decepticon chain. It was very goofy. It was hilarious. Like I took a bunch of pool pictures. It was great fun. But we had a very goofy weekend that weekend, and there was so much happening all the time because we tried to fit so much into that one weekend. To the point where like I just don't remember a ton of it. I remember we went to like after TFCon ended, I think there was a Denny's across the street or something similar, some kind of diner kind of like that. And there ended up being like 20 of us at just this long, like super long table. Mike, were you there for that?
No.
No, it was.
No, because I flew home Sunday late afternoon.
I see. Yeah.
So it was basically like right after the convention ended. In fact, that was the convention that made me decide, oh, wait a sec, I need to fly out Monday morning.
Yeah.
because there's more hang to have.
Right. No, we all piled into this Denny's. We had to have been the worst customers in the world because we were pushing tables together and causing problems, and then we all like. While we were waiting for our food, they had like a claw machine in the lobby, and we all went and like took turns on that until the food came out. It was obnoxious. We had great fun, but it was definitely No, it was. There's definitely an experience difference in going to TFCon in your mid-20s. But it was a lot of fun, and I have got the hankering to go to a TFCon again and see how much actual energy I have now. So.
Yeah, well, now you have a couple chances coming up. It's coming back to LA next year in March, and I'm strongly considering it.
Yeah.
And there is a part of me that thinks that with it being the 40th anniversary, that they're going to roll somebody cool out. Like I don't know if you're going to get like a Frank Welker, Peter Cullen double bill, but if there was ever a time to do it, it would probably be this one.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that'd be, big expectations, but that'd be very cool. I don't know, like, I just need to find a good time to dedicate the money to doing it, because right after you bought a house is not a good time to do anything. So.
No.
But honestly, I'll probably have to give it a couple years before I can do, I don't think that falls under the category of major travel, but, a couple $1,000s worth of travel, I'd say, just from all the stuff I end up buying in those weekends.
Yeah, between hotel and flight. Because it's like, I think for me to go to Orlando was, before I even bought a single thing, I think I'm like $2,000 out the door between flights and accommodations. And that's just to get there. That's not food. That's not drinks. That's not knickknacks. So yeah, it is a very, very expensive weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Kai. How are you? I hope you are doing well, and I hope your stream is going well. I'm hanging out with Mike, who is here to help keep me awake. And also we just enjoy chatting and hanging out. So we were doing that with Transformers, among other things. I don't think we're necessarily exclusively limited to Transformers. It's just what we end up talking about 90% of the time. But yeah, someone asked about Bionicles earlier, so I guess we technically...
Well, I was going to say that was kind of steered by the questions more than anything.
Yeah, no, Mike came up and people started talking Transformers. That's just what happens. Bell says, "Uh-oh, that nap has annihilated me. Uh-oh." Bell, you're welcome to go and take more nap if you'd like to.
Go do more nap.
Joe says, "I love steering." That's awesome, Joe.
Me too. It helps me drive straight.
Bell, I will remind you that proper nap cycles are either 20 minutes or an hour and a half. So, if you wake up at a time that is not that, you will be sleepier. I promise to be here on my honor. You can take a 20-minute...
with the OU.
Bell is in the EU, so it is even worse of a time for Bell right now.
Holy smokes, yeah.
It is
so
6:30.
It's already well into tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah. So she was up for about 20 hours straight, and then took a brief nap, and has now decided to be here even longer. So we might have a repeat of last year with Belle asleep in a cereal bowl, while I Peggle. Chose a water bottle, LOL. We're gonna get Belle on stream and ask her to say words with T's in them.
And actually, you know what? I think I'm going to cut it right here for now, because in the next segment of the show, kind of the next movement of the Whirly Birds live stream, charity live stream for Extra Life, it's kind of in this next section coming up where I'm going to bring out the fan favorite pod decks, and we do several rounds of hilarious questions and answer sessions. And as you already heard, there were some names being dropped there in that last little bit. But Belle, Beardy, and Kai will also join Whirl and myself to tackle questions from the Pod Decks interview deck, the Pod Decks episode deck, the Would You Rather deck, and of course, everyone's favorite, the What the Heck deck. Look for that episode in the near future, but that will do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and for hanging out with me. And if you want to listen to my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, you could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts for now, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever the hell else you listen to your podcast. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. And please do not forget that you can still donate to Extra Life until the end of this year. The link is in the show notes. And thanks to Whirl for their permission to present this audio to you here now. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio. And until next time, tell all are one, make good choices. Mike Seibert Radio is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Our original theme song is written and performed by Lucia Fasano. Get her music on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and check out her Instagram at Lucia_Fasano. Our closing theme is A Nice Place to Visit by These Young Fools, used with permission from Michael Geissler. Check out Michael's website, bytourmusic.com. Special thanks to Andy Lita for our logos and graphic design. He is at GoGoAndyRobo out on Twitter. Become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group. And you can follow me on all the social medias at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And check out my YouTube channel for even more videos and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me an email, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.